Hello and welcome to Devil's Advocate. As the debate over reservations for the OBCs divides the country, we ask, what are the government's real intentions? That's the critical question that I shall put today in an exclusive interview to the Minister for Human Resource Development, Arjun Singh. Minister, most people would accept that steps are necessary to help the OBCs gain greater access to higher education. The real question is, why do you believe reservations is the best way of doing this?
Well, I wouldn't like to say much more on this because, you see, these are decisions that are taken by not individuals alone. And in this case, the entire parliament of this country, almost with rare unanimity, has decided to take this decision.
Except Parliament is not infallible. In the emergency when it amended the Constitution, it was clearly wrong. It had to reverse its own amendments. So the question arises, why does Parliament believe reservations is the right way of helping the OBCs?
Well, you may call it, the Parliament is certainly, nobody is infallible, but Parliament is supreme. And the supremacy of Parliament, at least I as a member of Parliament, cannot but accept.
No doubt Parliament is supreme, but the constitutional amendment that gives you your authority is actually an enabling amendment. It's not a compulsory requirement. And secondly, the language of the amendment doesn't talk about reservations. The language talks about any provision by law for advancement of socially and educationally backward classes. So you could have chosen anything other than reservations. Why reservations?
Well, because as I said, that was the will and desire of Parliament.
And so do you personally also, as Minister of Human Resource Development, believe that reservations is the right and proper way to help the OBCs?
Certainly that is one of the most important ways to do it.
The right way?
Also the right way.
In which case, let's ask a few basic questions. We're talking about reservations for the OBCs in particular. Do you know what percentage of the Indian population is OBC? Mandal puts it at 52%. The National Sample Survey at 32%, the National Family and Health Survey at 29.8%. Which is the correct figure?
Well, I think that should be decided by people who are more knowledgeable. But the point is that the OBCs form a fairly sizable percentage of our population.
No doubt, but the reason why it's important to know what percentage they form is that if you're going to have reservations for them, then you must know what percentage of the population they are. Otherwise, you don't know whether they are already adequately catered in higher education or not.
Well, that is obvious they are not.
Why is it obvious?
Obvious because that is something which we all see.
Except for the fact that the NSSO, which is a government-appointed body, has actually in its research in 1999, which is the most latest research, shown that 23.5% of all university seats are already with the OBCs. And that is just 8.5% less than what the NSSO believes is the OBC share of the population. So for a difference of 8%, would reservations be the right way of making up the difference?
Well, you see, I wouldn't like to go behind all this because, as I said, Parliament has taken a view and Parliament has taken a decision. As a servant of Parliament, I can only implement.
Absolutely. Parliament has taken a view, I grant it, but what people question is the simple fact, is there a need for reservations? If you don't know what percentage of the country is OBC, and if furthermore the NSSO is correct in pointing out that already 23.5% of college seats are with the OBC, then you don't have a case in terms of need.
College seats? I don't know.
College seats, 23.5% of college seats, according to the NSSO, which is a government-appointed body, are already with OBCs.
What do you mean by college seats?
University seats. Seats of higher education.
Well, I don't know. I have not come across that.
So when critics say to you that you don't have a case for reservation in terms of need, what do you say to them?
Well, I have said what I had to say, and the point is that that is not an issue now for us to debate.
You mean the chapter's closed?
A decision has been taken.
Regardless of whether there is a need or not, the decision is taken and it's a closed chapter.
Well, so far as I can see, it is a closed chapter, and that is why I have to implement what our Parliament has decided.
Minister, it's not just in terms of need. that your critics question the decision to have reservations for OBCs in higher education. More importantly, they question whether reservations themselves are efficacious and can work. For example, a study done by the IITs themselves shows that 50% of IIT seats for the SCs and STs remain vacant, and of the remaining 50%, 25% are candidates who even after 6 years fail to get their degrees. So clearly, in their case, reservations aren't working.
Well, I will only say one thing, that on this issue, it would be not correct to go by all these figures that are being paraded.
You mean the IIT figures themselves could be dubious?
Not dubious, but I think that is not the last word.
All right, maybe the IIT may not be the last word. Let me then quote you the report of the Parliamentary Committee on the Welfare for Scheduled Castes and Scheduled Tribes. That's a parliamentary body. It says that looking at Delhi University, between 1995 and 2000, just half the seats for undergraduates at the scheduled caste level and just 1/3 of the seats for undergraduates at the scheduled tribe level were filled. All the others went empty, unfilled. So again, even in Delhi University, reservations aren't working.
Well, if they are not working, it does not mean that for that reason we don't need them. There must be some other reason why they are not working, and that can be certainly probed and examined. But to say that for this reason no reservation need to be done.
50 years after reservations were made, statistics show, according to the Hindustan Times, that overall in India, only 16% of the places in higher education are occupied by SCs and STs. The quota is 22.5, which means that only 2/3 of the quota is occupied. 1/3 is going waste. It's being denied to other people.
As I said, the kind of figures that have been brought out, in my perception, do not reflect the realities. Realities are something much more, and of course, there is an element of prejudice also.
But these are figures that come from a parliamentary committee. It can't be prejudiced. They are your own colleagues.
Parliamentary committee has given the figures, but as to why they has not happened, that is another.
I put it to you that you don't have a case for reservations in terms of need. You don't have a case for reservations in terms of their efficacy. Why then are you insisting on extending them to the OBCs?
I don't want to use that word, but I think your argument is basically fallacious.
But it's based on all the facts available in the public domain.
Those are facts which I said need to be gone into with more care, and what lies behind those facts, why this has not happened, that also is a fact.
All right, let's approach the issue of reservations differently in that case. Reservations means that a lesser qualified candidate gets preference over a more qualified candidate solely because in this case he or she happens to be OBC. In other words, the upper castes are penalized for being upper caste.
No, nobody is penalized, and that is a factor which we are trying to address, and I think the Prime Minister will be talking to all the political parties and will be putting forward a formula which will see that nobody is penalized.
I want very much to talk about that formula,
No,
but
but I
before
can't.
we come to talk about how you're going to address concerns, let me point one other corollary. Reservations also gives preference and favor to caste over merit. Is that acceptable in a modern society?
The perceptions of a modern society, I don't think fit India entirely.
You mean India is not a modern society, therefore can't claim to be treated as one?
It is a modern society, emerging as a modern society, but the modern society's parameters do not apply to a large section of the people in this country.
Let me quote Jawaharlal Nehru, a man who you personally admire enormously, who on the 27th of June 1961 wrote to the chief ministers of the day as follows: I dislike any kind of reservations. If we go in for reservations on communal and caste basis, we will swamp the bright and able people and remain second-rate or third-rate. The moment we encourage the second-rate, we are lost. And then he adds pointedly, this way lies not only folly, but disaster. What do you say to Jawaharlal Nehru today?
Well, Jawaharlal Nehru was a great man in his own right, and not only I, but everyone in India except a few.
But you're just about to ignore his advice.
No. Are you aware that it is Jawaharlal Nehru who introduced the first amendment regarding OBC?
Yes, and I'm talking about Jawaharlal Nehru in 1961, when clearly he had changed his position. He said, I dislike any kind of reservations.
I don't think one could take Panditji's position at any point of time and then overlook what he had himself initiated while the Constitution, after the Constitution was
So am I then to understand that regardless of the case that's made against reservations in terms of need, regardless of the case that's made against reservations in terms of efficacy, regardless of the case that's made against reservations in terms of Jawaharlal Nehru, you remain committed to extending reservations to the OBCs?
Well, I said because that is the will of Parliament. And I think common decisions that are taken by Parliament have to be honored.
Then let me ask you a few basic questions. If reservations are going to happen for the OBCs in higher education, what percentage of reservations are we talking about?
No, that I can't say because that has yet to be decided.
Could it be less than 27%?
Well, I can't say anything on that. I have told you in the very beginning that at this point of time, it is not possible for me to...
Quite right. But if you can't say, that also means that the figure is not decided.
No. The figure will be decided. It's not decided yet.
It's not decided yet. And therefore, the figure could be 27, but it could be less than 27.
Well, I don't want to speculate on that because, as I said, that is a decision will be taken by Parliament.
All right?
Yes.
Whatever the figure, one thing is certain, that when the reservations for OBCs happen, the total quantum of reservations will go up in percentage terms. Will you compensate by increasing the total number of seats in colleges, universities, IITs and IIMs, so other students don't feel deprived?
Well, that is one of the suggestions that has been made and is being seriously considered.
Does it find favor with you as Minister for HRD?
Well, whatever suggestion comes, we are committed to examine it. What is
You may be committed to examine it, but do you as Minister believe that that is the right way forward?
That could be one of the ways, not only the only way, but that could be
What
one.
are the other ways?
I don't know. That is for the Prime Minister and the
But
other ministers.
one way forward would be to increase the total
that
number
is-
of seats. The problem is that, as the Times of India points out, we're talking of an increase of perhaps as much as 53%. Given the constraints you have in terms of faculty and infrastructure, won't that order of increase dilute the quality of education?
I would only make one humble request. Don't go by the Times of India or the Hindus Times about faculty, infrastructure, because they are trying to, what you call, focus on an argument which they have made.
Okay, I won't go by the Times of India. Let me instead go by Mr. Sukhdev Thorat, the chairman of the UGC.
Yes, that is, but that can be addressed.
He points out that already today at higher education levels, that's all universities, IITs and IIMs, there is a 1.2 lakh vacancy number, 40% of which are in teaching staff. The IIT faculties themselves point out that they have shortages of up to 30%. So given those two constraints, can you increase the number of
that
seats?
can be addressed, I'm saying. That shortage can be taken care of.
But it can't be taken care of in one swoop. It will take several years to do it.
Well, I don't know whether it can be taken care of straight away or in stages. That is subject to be decided.
Let me ask you bluntly. If you were to agree to compensate for reservations for OBCs by increasing the total number of seats, would that increase happen at one go, or would it be staggered over a 2, 3 or 4 year
Well,
process?
as I told you, that is an issue which I cannot comment upon at this moment, because that is under examination.
So it may happen at one go, it may happen over a several series of years.
I can't speculate on it because that is not something on which I'm free to speak today.
What about something else? Will the reservation for OBCs, whatever figure your committee decides on, will it happen at one go, or will it slowly be introduced in stages?
That also I cannot say because, as I told you, all these issues are under consideration.
Which means that everything that is of germane interest to the people affected is at the moment under consideration, and the government is not able to give any satisfaction to the students who are deeply concerned.
That is not the point. The government knows what to do will do what is needed.
But if the government knows what to do, why won't you tell me what the government wants to do?
Because unless the decision is taken, I cannot tell you.
But you can share with me as minister your thinking.
No.
So in other words, we are maintaining a veil of secrecy, and the very people who
I
are
am
concerned...
not maintaining a veil of secrecy. I am only telling you what propriety allows me to tell.
Propriety doesn't allow you to share with the people protesting on the streets what you're thinking?
Well, I don't think all the time that can happen.
But there are people who feel that their lives and their futures are at stake.
Well,
they are undertaking fast
it's being
unto
hyped
death.
up. It is being hyped up. I don't want to go into that.
Do you have no sympathy for them?
I have every sympathy.
Then you say it's hyped up.
Yes, it is hyped up.
So then what sympathy are you showing?
I am showing sympathy to them, not for those who are hyping it up.
The CPM says that if reservations for the OBCs are to happen, then what's called the creamy layer should be excluded. How do you react to that?
The creamy layer issue has already been taken care by the Supreme Court.
But that was vis-a-vis jobs in employment. What about at the university level? Should they be excluded there as well? Because you're suggesting the answer is yes.
Well, that could be possible.
It could be possible. So it could be possible that the creamy layer excluded from reservations for OBCs in higher education.
It could be, but I don't know whether that will happen actually.
What about something else? Many people say that if reservations for OBCs in higher education happen, then the children of beneficiaries should not be entitled to claim the same benefit.
Why?
So that there's always a shrinking base and that it doesn't proliferate.
Well, I don't think that is a very logical way of looking at it.
So that's not acceptable to you?
No, it's not the logical way of looking at it. Everything doesn't
So with the possible exception of the creamy layer exclusion, reservations for OBCs in higher education when they happen will be almost identical to the existing reservations for SCs and STs.
Except for the percentage.
Except for the percentage.
Yes.
So in every other way they will be identical.
Every other way, yes.
Let's take a break at that point, Mr. Arjun Singh. Let's come back and talk about the politics behind this issue, and in particular the two questions the media has raised. Did you raise this subject to embarrass the Prime Minister? Or have you raised the subject because in some way you believe it benefits you personally? We'll be back in a moment's time. See you after that. Welcome back to an exclusive interview with the Minister of Human Resource Development, Arjun Singh. Mr. Arjun Singh, on the 5th of April, when you first indicated that the government was considering reservations for OBCs in higher education, was the Prime Minister in agreement that this was the right thing to do?
I think a very motivated propaganda is on this issue. Providing reservation to OBCs was in the public domain right from December 2005 when Parliament passed the enabling resolution.
Quite true, but had the Prime Minister specifically agreed on or before the 5th of April to the idea?
Well, I'm telling you, it was already there, and the whole act was made, the constitution was amended, and the Prime Minister was fully aware of what this was going to mean. Actually, he had a meeting in which OBC leaders were called to convince them that this will give them the desired advantage, and they should therefore support this legislation. And at that meeting, he himself talked to them. Now, how do you say that he was unaware?
But were you at all aware that the Prime Minister might be in agreement with what was about to happen, but might not wish it disclosed publicly at that point? Were you aware of that?
It was already in the public domain. That is what I'm trying to tell you.
Then answer this to me. Why are members of the PMO telling journalists that the Prime Minister was not consulted and that you jumped the gun?
Well, I don't know which member of the PMO, unless you name him. I don't know whether anybody...
Is there a conspiracy to make you the fall guy?
Well, I don't know whether there is or there is not, but the fall guys are not made like this way, and I'm only doing what is manifestly clear to everyone, was cleared by the party and the Prime Minister. There's no question of any personal agenda.
They say that in fact you brought up this issue to embarrass the Prime Minister.
Why should I embarrass the Prime Minister?
Because
I'm with him. I'm part of his team.
They say that you have a lingering, forgive the word, jealousy because Sonia Gandhi chose Manmohan Singh and not you as Prime Minister.
Well, that is a canard which is below contempt. Only that person can say this, who does not know what kind of respect and regard I hold for Sonia Gandhi. She is the leader. Whatever she decides is acceptable to me.
They also say that you brought this issue up because you felt that the Prime Minister had been eating into your portfolio. Part of it had gone to Renaka Chaudhary, and in fact your new Deputy Minister, Purandeshri Devi, had taken over certain powers. This was your way of
No
getting
one
back.
was taking over any part. This is a decision which the Prime Minister makes as to who has to have what portfolio, and he asked Mrs. Renaka Devi to take it, and he cleared it with me first.
So there's no animus on your part?
Absolutely not.
They say that you did this because you resented the Prime Minister's popular image in the country, that this was your way of embroiling him in a dispute that would make him look not like a modern reformer, but like an old-fashioned Tammany Hall politician instead.
Well, the Tammany Hall political stage is over. He is our Prime Minister, and every decision he has taken is in the full consent with his cabinet, and I don't think there can be any blame on it.
One then last quick question. Do you think this issue, which is a sensitive issue, where everyone knew there would have been passions and emotions that would be aroused, has been handled as effectively as it should have been?
Well, I haven't done anything on it. I have not sort of what you call jumped the gun. If this is an issue which is sensitive, everyone needs to treat it that way.
But your conscience as HRD Minister is clear and clean?
Absolutely clear.
There's nothing that you could have done to make this easier for the young students?
Well, I am prepared to do anything that can be done, and it is being attempted.
For 7 weeks they've been protesting in the hot sun. No minister has gone to appease them, to allay their concerns, to express sympathy for them. Have politicians let the young people of India down?
Well, I myself called them. They all came here in this very...
But you're the only one. After that,
now you are accusing me only. Nobody else is being accused.
What about the government of India? Has the government of India failed to respond adequately?
No, government of India also, the defense minister met them.
Only recently.
That is something because everyone was busy in the
For
election.
7 weeks no one met them.
Well, I didn't say that nobody, and we are very concerned, and certainly all of us resent the kind of force that was used. I condemned it the very first day that it happened.
All right, Mr. Arjun Singh, we've reached the end of this interview. Thank you very much for speaking on the subject.